The reason why the third factor might also be important is because you're talking about a country that has the hugest number of internally displaced persons.
Yes.
And right now we're looking at, an area that suffered the same conflict because of the Boko Haram violence. State of emergency has been declared there for the last 1 year, thereabouts. And we've seen people leave those areas, even within their states. So you find people moving from, say, Konduga or Goza down to Maiduguri.
Yes.
They are all within Borno State, but that's some migration, and they are internally displaced people in those states. The president, it would seem, did touch on that a little, with the mention of the Victim Support Fund. If we're to support internally displaced persons, how are we to do it?
I would rather we support the effort to prevent internally displaced persons than to support internally displaced persons.
Isn't that part of what you requested for short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan for solution?
Yes, that is it. That is it. But now, you see, you may end up feeding the elephant unwittingly by providing an avenue where you will continue to receive that. For now, look at, you see, every state, almost every state, look at the entire middle belt of Nigeria. Look at the internal displacement happening in Jos, in Plateau State. And the internal displacement that's been happening in Benue. That is, humongous. Which is imagined in Kogi. This is it. So what we would rather look at very simple thing in law, and it doesn't have anything to do with that. This is the laws of trespass and ownership of land. Settle that and apply the laws the way it is. Is trespass no longer a law? There's nothing called trespass. It's only a lawless situation that trespass doesn't happen, that anybody walks anywhere. And for people to take responsibility of the thing, they must own it. For us to take responsibility of Nigeria, we must own it. Right to the very, 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 very smallest square meter. If we claim it is ours, then we must own it.
Does that suggest that we don't seem to own it?
We seem to just be all over the place. Everybody's, everybody claims, what is it? To own something, how do you define it? That's why I say that what is the Nigerian citizenship? If I call myself a Nigerian citizen? But the issue is that, unfortunately, while many understand and want to be citizens, millions of Nigerians don't even see themselves as citizens. They see themselves as subjects of Iran, or subjects of individuals. And there's a clear contradiction in that between, you can't be, Nigeria is not, that's why the question of the Nigerian citizenship, what does it mean? And who are we?
Let's tie this now into the national conference. You say that you are hoping that the national conference will address those issues for you, and that you didn't seem to answer that one particular question. But it would seem that we were also concerned about whether or not we wanted to stay together, even though it was taken for granted at that conference that we do and indeed want to stay together. The question was how, and which was what they went on to address.
Yes.
How would you rate the outcome of the national conference?
I think there are a lot of things that we can use from it, just as there are a lot of things we can use from previous conferences. This is just an update with people expressing themselves better. I think some people got to know other people better at that conference. I also believe that some of the decisions that they came, or the agreements that came out, are good building blocks, right, for a conclusion, or for a political settlement, as we say in governance balance. Having said, it's slightly loose-ended. Loose-ended in, the president has set up a 5-man implementation plan. We'll see how it goes. But the fact still remains is that who and what is the citizenship question, has not yet been nailed. Everything has been said, right? But some different people want different things.
Isn't it taken for granted, citizenship, that, you're right as a citizen?
If there's a citizenship, if there is
enshrined in our constitution.
Yes, if it is so, Why do you have in some places of the country, people don't have a choice as to when they can get married? And in other places you do have that choice. That means you don't have equal citizenship, even in the same country. Why is it that in parts of the country there is a right, or there is the response in certain choices you make, and certain associations you make are guaranteed, and in other parts of the country it is not?
It's a very, very, it's a dicey question there, but it's a very important question.
The situation is very dicey.
Haven't you answered it when you say that you're looking at Nigeria as a federation?
Yes.
And there were a conglomeration of many nations, and all of that must be taken into cognizance, even when we're defining citizenship.
I agree with you. So there must be a baseline. So there must be a baseline. Our citizenship doesn't have to be that detailed. There must be a baseline. And this is why a number of people try to express themselves as some loose federation. There must be a baseline of your citizenship. There must be something that I know as a Nigerian. If I go to any corner of Nigeria, basically I get that.
You know, one other factor, determining factor perhaps in this measuring citizenship and what it means to us is elections.
Yes.
Do you see us demonstrate that ownership with our elections?
I believe in many places it's getting better. They say practice makes perfect. It's getting better.
So in other words, I mean, because if you have a population of 60 to 70, 75 million registered voters, and then out of a country of 160 or 175, so you still have that large group of people, but a lot more have come on now to register, but it looks as though that list is dwindling. But from the look of things, as we move on to this general elections, do you see lots of people demonstrating that I think we want to participate in terms of our vote counting this time?
Well, people will need to have a reason to come out. There has to be some hope. There has to be some passion. The choice to abstain is a choice in itself. And people usually abstain when they don't see any clear difference, either between the offers made or between what their choices will make. It's like, for some people, they believe that, and some people, they are just not responsible. They, it's not everybody that refuses to vote that has good reasons for refusing. There are some people that just, they're not, that's part of citizenship responsibility. And, but responsible citizens, some of them have reasons why they don't want to vote. But of course, we pray and we urge Nigerians at every point in time to take, that's what we talk about, the ownership. Because when people own something, if Nigerians take ownership of the 2015 election, they will have the government they want. They will have the government they need. But obviously, they will definitely have the government they deserve, because it's your effort. But a lot of Nigerians, and even if you abstain from the elections, you own responsibility to whatever outcome it is, because you abstain, and that means you say, whatever comes in, I'm going to live with it.
So you can't complain later?
No, you do not complain. Even if you don't vote, you don't complain. It's not, you have no right to, because you had a choice to go and vote.
All right, we'll come back and continue with this one, but we'll take a moment and go for the headline news. So Victor Matthias is standing by with that again.